Good day and welcome to another edition of the Daily Fix. I am your usual host and presenter, Advocate Tulohoyani. I want to take another look at the role that General Shadrach Sibiya has been playing in the investigation of the killing of Senzo MEYIWA. Let me reiterate at the onset that you see the involvement of General Shadrach Sibiya in this investigation does not seem to have been in any formal sense. I am saying that because General Sibiya has made no statement with regard to the investigation of this matter and appears nowhere as probably one of the investigators of this matter. The prosecution has closed his case. He also did not feature there. But he features at various points in time during this investigation, and every time when he surfaces, things just seem to go wrong. Let me give you an indication of what I'm talking about. Let us switch back the clock to October 26, 2014. General Sibiya is reported to have been one of the first people to have arrived on the crime scene. And shortly thereafter, we are told Warrant Officer Makubu also arrived. And he tried to prevail upon Warrant Officer Makubu to have the crime scene cleaned up. And Warrant Officer Makubu simply refused. And ended up being ordered off the scene by General Shadrach Sibiya. Now, the most crucial question that arises there is, what was Sibiya doing there? Because at that preliminary stage of the investigation, senior officers like General Sibiya are not supposed to be involved. This is the sort of run-of-the-mill thing that is done by far junior officers. And so Sibiya had no business being there. But we know, as a matter of fact, that Sibiya ultimately ended up there after he had been called to the crime scene by Zandi Kuman. So he was called to the crime scene, and the question that comes to mind is, why was he called to the crime scene? What was he supposed to do there? But that question sort of answers itself because we know that at the end of the day, he had that crime scene cleaned up, thus tampering with that crime scene, and thus committing the crime of obstructing the course of justice. That is the first reported, contact of General Sibiya with the investigation of the killing of Senzo MEYIWA. It seems that this interest in the Senzo MEYIWA trial continued because you'll recall that General Shadrach Sibiya was dismissed from the South African Police Service in 2015, allegedly for some other unrelated matter relating to the illegal deportation of Zimbabwean nationals and their repatriation back to Zimbabwe. So he lost his job in the South African Police Services, and for 7-8 years, he was out of the South African Police Services, at least on paper or in a formal sense. On the ground, General Sibiya still held himself out as the head of the Hawks. Can you imagine that? He still purported to be the head of the Hawks in spite of that dismissal in 2015. And it all unfolded in this fashion. Under cross-examination by attorney Ramusipili, Sizwe Zungu told the court that in 2019, there had been a meeting between him, Sizwe Zungu, General Shadrach Sibiya, and General Leshabane. And it would appear that the purpose of that meeting, according to Sizwe Zungu, under cross-examination by attorney Ramusipili, the purpose objective of that meeting was to, sort out the logistics around the guilt of the 5 accused persons that we are seeing in the Pretoria High Court. Asked by attorney Ramusipili, or when his attention was brought to the fact, or was focused on the fact that at the time, General Shadrach Sibiya was not a member of the South African Police Service. Sizwe Zungu simply replied and said, well, he told me that he was the head of the Hawks, and I took him to be the head of the Hawks. Another thing that must come to the attention of the Matanga Commission: why would General Sibiya, 4 years after his dismissal from the South African Police Services, have anything to do with the Senzo MEYIWA investigation? Call a General Leshabane, a high-ranking member of the South African Police Service, get him to be in a meeting with Sizwe Zungu, where he held himself out as the head of the Hawks, in effect still continuing the investigation, this peripheral underground investigation of his. Because like I said, nowhere does he make any formal statement of anything of that sort. He's always in and around, playing a peripheral, but sometimes very, very crucial role that has had a huge impact on the course of this investigation and trial. So in 2019, we have him virtually impersonating the South African Police Services to Sizwe Zungu. What was Sibiya pursuing, and what is Sibiya's interest in the Senzo MEYIWA trial? Who is he protecting? Why is he going out of his way, even during his dismissal, to be purporting to be one of the investigators of the Senzo MEYIWA trial? A fly-by-night investigator, rightly put. So this warrants some attention by the Matanga Commission for us to get to understand what was going on here, whose interests were being protected, and why. Let us move on. There is also the testimony of, I think it is General Kumar, who told the Matanga Commission that shortly after he was reinstated in 2022 or 2023, General Sergeant Sibiya moved quickly to try and persuade the National Commissioner of Police, Fani Masemola, to get him to be in charge of the cold case unit that was, among other things, dealing with the Senzo MEYIWA trial. So here we see the man, yet again, expressing this desire to be part and parcel, to have an influence on the course of events, on the course of the investigation. This man must come before the Matanga Commission over these things. And perhaps a lot of the things that we are seeing in the sense of MEYIWA trial, which are at this stage inexplicable, will then be cleared up. Having said that, let me thank you for watching this video. Let me thank you for all the views, the subscriptions, the likes that I'm seeing. Let us make it to 12,000 subscribers. It is easy and only a clock away. Thank you.